Hello and welcome to Outside Views, the channel where we unravel the stories behind the headlines and take an in-depth look at the policies shaping our post-Brexit world. Today we're diving into a critical and concerning issue: the alarming drop in British food exports to the European Union since Brexit. And this topic goes far beyond the realm of trade. It's about the economy, livelihoods, and the very fabric of the UK's relationship with its closest and largest trading partner. If Brexit was sold as an opportunity for Britain to thrive on the global stage, the reality for many sectors, especially agriculture and food production, tells a starkly different story. Let's begin by unpacking the numbers. Since 2018, British food exports to the EU have plummeted by 20% in real terms. For context, the EU is not just a significant trading partner for the UK, it is the dominant market for British food producers, accounting for 57% of all food exports. In 2023, this trade was valued at £14 billion, making the EU market a cornerstone of Britain's food export economy. A 20% decline represents billions of pounds lost, money that would have flowed into farms, rural communities, and businesses across the country. To understand why this has happened, we need to examine the fundamental changes brought about by Brexit. Before Brexit, the UK was part of the EU single market and the customs union, and this arrangement allowed for frictionless trade across borders with no need for customs checks, tariffs, or differing regulatory standards. Food products could move seamlessly between the UK and EU, benefiting both producers and consumers. But by leaving the single market and the customs union, the UK introduced a host of new barriers. These include customs declarations, regulatory compliance checks, and sanitary and phytosanitary inspections for animal and plant products. For many exporters, particularly small and medium-sized enterprises, these new requirements are overwhelming. Take the example of a cheese producer in Somerset exporting to France. Before Brexit, they could ship their products with minimal paperwork and no delays. Now, they must complete extensive documentation, pay additional fees, and navigate delays at ports. For perishable goods like cheese, these delays can be disastrous, leading to spoiled products and cancelled orders. The impact of these barriers is not just felt by exporters. Consumers in the UK are also paying the price. Imports of fruit from the EU have fallen by 11% since 2018 as well, creating shortages of certain products and driving up prices. And this comes at a time when the cost of living is already rising, placing further strain on households. Economists estimate that Brexit-related trade barriers have added hundreds of millions of pounds to food costs in the UK, making the weekly shop more expensive for millions of families. So what is being done to address these issues? The Labour government under Keir Starmer has promised to reset the UK's relationship with the EU and reduce trade barriers. One potential solution is a veterinary and phytosanitary agreement with the EU. Such an agreement would ally UK and EU standards for animal and plant products, reducing the need for border checks and easing the flow of goods. Countries like Switzerland have similar agreements with the EU, allowing for streamlined trade without full membership in the single market. However, negotiating such an agreement is easier said than done. Starmer has ruled out rejoining the single market or the customs union, citing political red lines established during the Brexit process. And this limits how much trade friction can realistically be reduced. Moreover, the EU is understandably cautious about granting the UK special access to its market without significant concessions. From the EU's perspective, allowing the UK to benefit from the single market perks without full membership sets a dangerous precedent and will not happen. It's also important to consider the broader geopolitical context. Brexit was not just an economic decision, it was a political one, driven by a desire for imagined sovereignty and control. But in a world where trade and supply chains are increasingly interconnected, no country can fully insulate themselves from its neighbors. And the challenges faced by British food exporters are a stark reminder of this reality. And public opinion on Brexit is shifting, as I told you several times already. Polls consistently show that a majority of Britons now believe Brexit was a mistake. And this growing disillusionment creates an opportunity for policymakers to pursue closer ties with the EU, particularly in areas like trade and agriculture. But seizing this opportunity will require political courage and a willingness to confront the hardliners who continue to push for a more isolated approach. And let's also consider the human impact of these challenges. Behind the trade statistics are real people, farmers, food producers, and workers in rural communities who are struggling to adapt to the new realities of Brexit. For many of them, the EU was not just a market, it was a lifeline. Losing access to that market means losing income, jobs, and in some cases, entire businesses. And the emotional toll of this cannot be overstated. And there are also environmental implications to consider. Disrupted trade flows mean that food must often travel longer distances to reach consumers, increasing carbon emissions and undermining efforts to combat climate change. For a world grappling with the climate crisis, these inefficiencies are deeply troubling. So, where do we go from here? And I don't mean the song. First, the UK government must prioritise a veterinary and phytosanitary agreement with the EU. This is a practical and achievable step that would ease some of the most burdensome trade barriers. Second, there needs to be a broader conversation about the UK's future relationship with the EU. While rejoining the EU may not be politically viable in the short term, closer alignment in specific areas such as agriculture and trade is both necessary and beneficial. And finally, the government must be honest about the economic costs of Brexit and take steps to mitigate them. And this includes supporting small businesses, investing in infrastructure, and exploring any chance of another market for British products. So in conclusion, the drop in British food exports to the EU is a symptom of deeper systemic issues created by Brexit. Addressing these issues will require a combination of pragmatic policymaking, international cooperation, and a willingness to confront difficult truths. The question is whether the UK's leaders are ready to rise to this challenge. So thank you for watching Outside Views again. And if you have thoughts on this topic or any ideas for how the UK and the EU can improve their trade relationship, share them in the comments below. And as always, if you found this discussion insightful, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Let's continue to explore and question the decisions that shape our post-Brexit world. Take care, and the next video is already right here in the end screen.